Hi there. So we are reading Baron Trump's Marvelous Underground Journey, written in 1800s by a lawyer. And in the last chapter 6, he finally found the marvelous underground world. If you missed that chapter, you should go back and listen to that first. We're doing them in order. But this is chapter 7, and we will jump into it. Let me move out of the way here. Okay, let's see how far we can get today. Chapter 7. So heavy was sleep did my eyelids become at last that I knew it must be a night in the outer world. And so we halted, and I stretched myself at full length on the marble floor, which, by the way, was pleasantly warm beneath us. And the air, too, was strangely comforting to the lungs, there being a complete absence of that smell of earth and odor of dampness so common in vast subterranean chambers. My sleep was long continued and most refreshing. Bulger was already awake, however, when I sat up and tried to look about me. He began tugging at the string which I had fastened to his collar as if he wanted to lead me somewhere, so I humored him and followed him along after. To my delight, he led me straight to a pool of deliciously sweet and cold water. Here we drank our fill, and after a very frugal breakfast of some dried figs, set out again on our journey along the marble highway. Suddenly, to my more than joy, the faint and uncertain light of the place began to strengthen. Why, it seemed almost as if the day of the upper world were about to break. So delicate were the various hues in which the ever-increasing light clothed itself. Then, as if affrighted at its own increasing glory, it would fade away again to almost gloom. Ere many moments again, this faint and mysterious glow would return, beginning with the softest yellow, then changing through a dozen different tints, and, like a fickle maid, uncertain which to wear, put all aside and donned the lily's garb. Bulger and I wandered along the marble highway, almost afraid to break a stillness so deep that it seemed to me as if I could hear those sportive rays of light in their play against the many-colored rocks arching this mighty corridor. Now, as the marble highway swept around us in graceful curve, a dazzling flood of light burst upon us. It was sunrise in the world within a world. Whence came this flood of dazzling light, which now caused the sides of the arching roof to glow and sparkle as if we had suddenly entered one of nature's most vast storehouses of polished gems? Shading my eyes with my hand, I looked about me in order to try and solve the mystery. It did not take me long to understand it all. Know then, dear friends, that the ceilings, domed, and arched roofs of this underground world were fretted with a metal of greater hardness than any known to us children of sunshine. It seems ran hither and thither like like the veins of gigantic leaves, and at certain hours currents of electricity from some vast internal reservoir of nature's own building streamed through these metal traceries until they glowed, with the heat so white as to give off a flood of dazzling light of which I have already spoken. The current never came with a sudden rush or burst, but began gently and timidly, so to speak, as if feeling its way along, hence the beautiful tints that always preceded sunrise in the lower world, and it made it so much like the coming and going of our glorious sunshine. The marble highway now divided, and the two halves of the fork curving away to the right and left enclosed a small but exquisitely ornamented park, or pleasure ground I might call it, provided with seats of some dark wood, beautifully polished and carved. This park was ornamented with 4 fountains, each springing from a crystal basin and spreading out to the feathery spray that glistened like whirling snow in the dazzling white light. As Bulger and I directed our steps toward one of these benches, in the intention of taking a good rest, a low growl from him warned me to be on the alert. I gave a second look. A human being was seated on the bench. Beside myself, as I was, with curiosity, I came face to face with this inhabitant of the underworld. The first we had met, I made a halt, determined to ascertain if possible whether he was quite harmless before accosting him. He was small in stature and clad entirely in black, a sort of loose flowing robe, much like a Roman toga. His head was bare, and what I could see of it was round, smooth, and rosy, with about as much hair, or rather fuzz, upon it as the head of an infant 6 weeks old. His face was hidden by a black fan which he carried in his right hand, and the uses of which you will learn later on. His eyes were shielded from the intense glare of the light by a pair of colored glass goggles. As he raised his hand between me and the light, I couldn't help catching my breath. I could see right through it. The bones were as clear as amber, and his head, too, was only a little less opaque. Suddenly, 2 words from Don Flum's manuscript flashed through my mind. I exclaimed joyously, "Bulger, we are in the land of the transparent folk." At the sound of my voice, the little man rose and made a low bow, lowering his fan to his breast where he held it. His baby face was ludicrously sad and solemn. "Yes, sir, stranger," said he in a low musical voice, "thou art indeed in the land of the Micamenkes. Micamen. Mica is a rock that you can see through. In the land of the transparent folk, also called Goggle Land. But if I should show thee my heart, thou wouldst see that I am deeply pained to think that I should have been the first to bid thee welcome. For know, sir stranger, that thou speakest with Master Cold Soul, the court depressor, the saddest man in all Goggle Land. And, by the way, sir, permit me to offer thee a pair of goggles for thyself, also a pair for thy four-footed companion, for our intense white light would blind thee both in a few days." I thanked Master Cold Soul very warmly for the goggles, and proceeded to set one pair astride my nose and to tie the other in front of Bulger's eyes. I then in a most courteous manner informed Master Cold Soul that who I was, and begged him to explain the cause of his great sadness. "Well, thou must know, little Baron," he said, after I had taken a seat beside him on the bench, "that we, the loving subjects of Queen Galaxa, whose royal heart is almost run down, excuse these tears, living as we do in this beautiful world, so unlike the one you inhabit, which our wise men tell us is built, strange to say, on the very outside of the earth's crust, where it is most exposed to the full sweep of blinding snow, freezing blast, pelting hail, drowning rain, and choking dust, living as we do, I say, in this vast temple by nature's own hands builded, where disease is unknown, and where our hearts run down like clocks that may have but one winding. We are prone, alas, to be too happy, to laugh too much, to spend too much time in idle gaiety, chattering the time away like thoughtless children amused with bubbles, delighted with tinsel nothings. Know then, little Baron, that mine is the business to check this gaiety, to put an end to this childish glee, to depress our people's spirits, lest they run too high. Hence my garb of inky hue, my rueful countenance, my frequent outflowing of tears, and my voice ever attuned to sadness. Excuse me, little Baron, my fan slipped then. Didst thou see through me? I would not have thee see my heart today, for some way or other I cannot bring it to slow pace. It is dreadfully unruly. I need to pause for a second and we'll return. Okay, I'm back. So, I need to backtrack a little bit. Excuse me, little Baron, my fan slipped then. Didst thou see through me? I would not have thee see my heart today, for some way or other I cannot bring it to a slow pace. It is dreadfully unruly. I assured him that I had not seen through him as yet. And now, dear friends, I must explain by the laws of the Micamenkes, each man, woman, and child must wear in their garments a heart-shaped opening in their breasts directly over their hearts, with a corresponding one at the back, so that under certain conditions, when the law allows it, each may have the right to take a look at his neighbor's heart and see exactly how it is beating, whether fast or slow, whether throbbing or leaping, whether pulsating calmly or naturally. But this privilege is only accorded, as I have said, under certain conditions. Hence, to shut off inquisitive glances, each Micamenke is allowed to carry a black fan, with which to cover the heart-shaped opening above described, and in this way conceal his or her feelings to a degree. I say to a degree, for I may as well tell you right here that falsehood is unknown, or more correctly stated, impossible in the land of the transparent folk, for the reason that so wondrously clear, limpid, and crystal-like are their eyes, that the slightest attempt to say one thing while they are thinking another roils and clouds them as if a drop of milk had fallen into a glass of the purest water. As I sat gazing at this strange little being seated on the bench beside me, I recalled a conversation which I had with the learned Russian at Slobodiketchikoks. Right. Said he, speaking of his people, "We are all born with light hair, brilliant eyes, and pale faces, for we have sprung up under the snow." And I thought to myself, how delighted, how entranced he would have been to look upon this curious being, born not under the snow, but far under the surface of the earth, where in these vast chambers of this world within a world, these strange folk had like plants grown in a dark, deep cellar, gradually parted with all their coloring until their eyes glowed like orbs of pure crystal, until their bones had been bleached to amber clearness, and their blood coursed colorless through their colorless veins. While sitting there following out this train of thought, the clear white light suddenly began to flicker and to play fantastic tricks upon the walls by dancing in garbs of ever-changing hues, now brightest yellow, now palest green, now glorious purple, and deepest crimson. "Ah, little Baron," exclaimed the Master Cold Soul, "that was an uncommonly short day. Rise, please." I made haste to obey, whereupon he touched a spring, and the bench opened up in the center, disclosing 2 very comfortable beds. And this is a picture of a dinner easily provided for. Weird. "In a few moments night will be upon us," continued the Mickey, "but thou seest that we have not been taken by surprise. I should explain to thee, little Baron, that owing to the capricious manner in which our river of light is apt both to begin and to cease flowing, we are never able to tell how long a day or night will prove to be. This is what we call twilight. In thy world, I suppose, a day goes out with a terrible bang, for our wise men tell us that nothing can be done in the upper world without making a noise, that your people really love noise, and that the man who makes the greatest noise is considered the greatest man. Owing to the fact, little Baron, that no one in Goggle-Land can tell you how long the day will last or how long it may be necessary to sleep, our laws permit no one to set any exact time when a thing shall be done, or to exact any promise to do this or that on a certain day. For, bless thy soul, that day may not be 10 minutes long. Hence we say, if tomorrow be over 5 hours long, come to me at the beginning of the 6th hour. And we never wish each other a plain good day, but say good night as long as it lasts. What's more, little Baron, as night is apt to come upon us this way unawares, by law all the beds belong to the state. No one is allowed to own his own bed, for when night overtakes him, he may be at the other end of the city, and some other object of Queen Galaxa may be in front of his door. No matter where night may overtake a Mickey, he is sure to find a bed. There are beds everywhere. By touching a spring, they drop from the walls. They pull out like drawers. They are under tables and divans in the parks, in the marketplace, by the roadside benches, bins, boxes, barrows, and barrels. By pressing a spring, may in an instant be transformed into beds. It is the land of beds, little Baron. But, I behold the twilight goes to its end. Good night, as long as it lasts. And with this, Mr. Cold Soul stretched himself out and began to snore, having first carefully covered up the 2 holes in the front and back of his garment, so that I shouldn't have a chance to take a peep through him in case I should wake up first. Bulger and I were right glad to lay our limbs on a real bed, although from the way our 4-footed brother followed his tail around, I could see that he wasn't particularly delighted with the softness of the couch. Okay, that's chapter 7. Very interesting. He's met some new people. I'm going to have some caves here in the background just because I thought so. We'll continue this tomorrow with chapter 8 and see how much farther we can get. But until then, keep reading. Catch up. It's in the Storytime playlist on the Godsinger channel, if you haven't. Until then, we'll see you next time and find out what happens to Little Baron next.